Oh yeah, it's that time again. Check it, check it. Yeah, yeah. Hey dudes, B.Jr here, B.Jr's Movie Cave on the Endurance Productions YouTube channel. It's Friday the 13th again. It's upon us. What were you guys thinking out there? You guys were asking me on a few personal messages, a couple of comments here and there. What are you going to do for Friday the 13th? Well, usually I did, in years past I did a marathon or some kind of review or something like that. This year, I want to do something a little different, mainly because, if you've been a horror fan as long as I have, you've seen these movies a million times. For me to sit here and regurgitate just same old kind of review, it's boring. I don't want to do that. I'm not going to roll like that today. What I want to do is get out my collection of Friday 13th films. No, I don't have the box set yet. There they are. Yeah, wow. I'm going to go through these, one by one in sequence. And B.Jr. is just going to share with you a little bit today. I'm going to be on the level with you. I'm going to share, the way I want to do this video is I want to share maybe a memory, one or two memories, or my first impressions of these films, the first time I saw them, that type of thing. Just kind of give you my feelings on each one on this glorious September Friday the 13th. And then once I get done with the video, I'm going to watch some movies. Friday the 13th. And along the way, I'll show if there's any of these signed. I'll show you, and I might show you a few, Friday 13th collectibles around the cave. I do have some one sheets still from I think 1 through 5, but I don't want to get those out of the basement because I'm really terrible about handling those. And you've seen them in prior videos. Look at my old videos; you can see those. And plus, I'm planning a one sheet overview, kind of going back to the vault kind of video, collection style video, pretty soon, but that'll be for another day. Today's Friday 13th. What we got here first is my old wacky, I love the 80s Friday 13th DVD. I've hung on to this one because I upgraded to the Blu-ray a while back, but I hung on to this one because it's signed by the writer of the film, Victor Miller. I contacted him by email a while back and told him I not only liked his writing style on Friday 13th, but also I think it's A Stranger Is Watching, other Sean Cunningham joint he did with the original director of this one. He said, yeah, send it on. He'd sign it, and he sent it back. So there you have it. Friday 13th original. First time I saw this film, it was on a RCA CED disc. And what that is, children out there of the new age, before Betamax, before VHS, before Laserdisc, or around the same time as Laserdisc was coming out, I think, there was a format, an experimental format of CED, compressed something disc. I can't remember what it stood for. RCA was the main proprietor of that. It was about the same size as a laser disc. You put it in it was a double-sided disc. It was like a phonograph or like a record, an LP record inside of a plastic sheath. Essentially, you take that and you put it in the machine. A needle would actually come down inside the machine and read it like it was a record. And the record, it would spin, play half the movie, then it would stop, and you'd have to take the sheath, put it in, pull it out, flip it over, and put it back in again. And hit go again, and it would play the second half of the movie. My uncle, back in the day, he's passed on now, God rest his soul, but he had an extensive CED library of horror films, sci-fi, and action films from the early to early mid-80s, late 70s, due to the fact that it was a dead format about the same time it come in. And VHS kind of reigned supreme then as the home video market kind of came into play into the 80s there. And he went around to flea markets and whatnot and bought up a ton of CED discs. So that's where I saw a lot of these films for the first time. Getting back to the point, Friday 13th was viewed on that format first time around. Real grainy, real kind of low quality, full screen version. But I got to say, highly atmospheric. I was a young tyke at that time. I was probably around about 6 or 7 years old when I first saw this film, and I gotta say, I could understand what was going on. Basically, I knew some kids were in trouble, and there was a killer on the loose, and then this really wacky lady at the end of the movie was the killer. I knew those basics of the movie. Only later did I understand more. When I got a little bit older in my teen years, I really truly understood it was more or less a revenge film, and had a really great campfire slasher atmosphere to it. That was my first my first foray into Friday the 13th goodness. I did see the first one. It was the first one that I viewed, but it was on home video. I didn't see it in the theaters. I was too young for anybody to take me at that time. But as time went on, when we got into Friday the 13th Part 2, just a year later, it was becoming a fad already. These movies are going to start getting cranked out about once every year past that point. The Part 2 Blu-ray signed by the one and the only Steve Dash, who played mostly all of Jason in that movie. Warrington Gillette is credited on the credits, but he only played one scene. He was Jason without the potato sack coming through the window at the end of the movie. The rest of the time it's Steve Dash pretty much the whole movie running around getting his butt kicked by Amy Steele through the film. Got to say, the atmosphere in this movie is very, very creepy. I've always thought Part 2 is a very creepy one, but a very enjoyable sequel. A lot of people kind of crap on this one nowadays. Back in the day, everybody thought it was really the shiznit. But nowadays, it's kind of customary. People's tastes change over time, and I feel like a lot of times Part 2 kind of gets lost in the mix a little bit. But it's got great performances, good special effects. Average to good special effects. Good kills that are kind of lifted from other films, but we won't go into that. My first impression or my first experience with Part 2 was on a VHS tape. When the VHS market started hitting its stride around 84, 85, or at least to where relatives would actually have a machine in their home, because they were still expensive back then, guys. Little kids out there, remember VHS players back in the day went for multiple hundreds of dollars back then. It was only until the late 80s, early 90s that they started going down to the El Cheapo prices that regular folk could afford at that time. Part 2 was viewed on a VHS tape. I do not think I saw Part 2 before I saw Part 3. Part 3 I've watched before this one, and I didn't really know why he had a potato sack on his head until I watched this. I didn't understand why didn't he have a hockey mask on, because I saw the hockey mask one before I saw this one. So it was a little bit out of sequence that way, but it was a grainy full screen version. Of course, all tapes, full screen back in the day. And I remember being a little more scared of this one as a kid than I was the original. Original one, it was like a year earlier, and I didn't quite understand everything. This time was a year later, and plus all my older cousins were were wanting us to see these films. They were going to see them, at the movies when they come out, and they were kind of hyping it up for us younger kids in the family. And Part 2 scared me a little bit more, especially with the head scene at the end of the movie where Jason put his mom's head on the table, and the big showdown between him and Amy Steele. I feel like the suspense level in this one's higher than the original. The atmosphere is better than the original, and the effects were better in the original. But the suspense and the action was a little bit better in this one. I've always thought that. Plus, people always differ with me on this. Even with the Blu-ray versions, the cleaned up Blu-ray versions that are out, I still think Part 2 was a more technically it was a more technically well shot movie than the first movie. It looks better shot than the first film. That's just my humble opinion. Part 2, rock and roll. Alright, good old 3D, the Gimmick movie that came out. I think I've mentioned it before. I saw this one before Part 2. He does get his ceremonial hockey mask, and a lot of people forget the Friday the 13th film the whole franchise lasted a long time. It's still ongoing, hopefully. But Jason Voorhees really didn't hit his stride till probably about this movie. Part 2 was the experimental look movie. I did like the potato sack. I thought it was really good and atmospheric looking and really creepy. But the hockey mask just blew it right out of the water. He gets it from Shelley, the prankster in the movie, and it gets they retain the use of the machete and kind of comes true to form in Part 3. Plus, you got the added gimmick out in the theaters of the 3D. The Blu-ray set that's out now, the box set and the individual one they put out a couple years ago, have the 3D glasses. It's the old red and blue anaglyph. It basically works if you have the right setup and you're staring at the TV for a long time, but it gives you a headache. I've always thought if they just released this in a proper kind of redone 3D format, for today's TVs, it might pay off a little bit more. Then again, it's just kind of a side note. Paramount, not to badmouth them, I know they keep putting these out, but that's the whole problem. They keep putting these out. they don't really give us the definitive editions of these, and that's probably the real reason why I'm dragging my feet on getting the box set that just came out this season. Because I just know in my gut they're going to re-release all the Blu-rays individually, so if I want to upgrade at that time, they're cheap enough for an El Cheapo guy like me, I'll pick them up. But even the special features on the Blu-ray set are kind of mediocre in my opinion. They're not really much more than what you got in the deluxe editions. Because one thing I really would say along the way is make sure you look out for that Crystal Lake Memories documentary. It's supposed to be like a 7-hour documentary. Mine's on order. Hopefully it'll get here in the next day or so. It didn't come today for some reason, so hopefully it'll be here soon. Back to the point. Friday the 13th Part 3. I think, if I remember right, I got to see this one in the theater. Except I didn't understand at that young age what the 3D concept was all about. All my older cousins were like, yeah, put on your glasses, put on your glasses. I'd put them on for a while, take them off, put them on, just play. I was just a kid. I was playing around. It wasn't until I got to see this on home VHS that I really kind of understood the gimmicks. They were putting things out at the screen and, you know, doing the apples and oranges and all that stuff in the movie. The 3D kills, all that kind of stuff. For the longest time, for that reason, it was a really great, enjoyable experience. I remember being scared but having fun at the same time with Part 3. Part 3 historically has always been like the most fun one for me, or kind of a go-to one, because the bikers in the film are real funny and all that kind of stuff. It's got some crazy dialogue in it, just really zany, bad acting in the movie. That's what I take away from Part 3. It's kind of like the party one. If you want to drag it out and just have a goofy old good time, it's laughable. But it's an enjoyable standard sequel, you know, right behind Part 2. So that's my impressions of Part 3. It's not really up there in my top 3 anymore because I've watched it so doggone much, but I always enjoyed that one. Friday the 13th, final chapter. Look at that lenticular cover. Yeah. This one's signed, actually, by one of the actresses, Judy Aronson, who played Samantha. Yes, that's right, guys. The girl that stripped and dipped in the film. She wrote on there, Barry, strip and dip, Judy Aronson, Samantha. Kind of the, I don't know what you call her, the stereotypical slut of the slasher film, or what, because, you know, they always had to have the nerd guy, the prankster guy, the jock guy, the slutty girl chick. You know, it became like the norm in the 80s. But anyway, she played a really good part in that film. She signed that for me. There again, Paramount Deluxe Edition. My first, or a good memory of Part 4 that I have that pops out in my mind every time the final chapter comes up in the play is like 3rd or 4th grade when this one came. I was in grade school. I'll just say it that way. Don't remember exactly. I remember all the kids at school. I did not get to see this one in the theaters. But a lot of kids, their older brothers and sisters, took them because you remember we're on the 4th film. It was a big franchise now. This was a big budget. They got Savini back, man. They got the effects in there. You know, they're going to close it out, but not really, because, you know, there's always a new beginning around the corner. That's right. But in grade school, this was the film that kids were just talking about. They're like, I remember all these grade school kids saying, yeah, man. And these little kids were like, yeah, they cut Jason's head off, man. And they didn't cut his head off, man. They cut it in 2. Oh, yeah. And then nobody could, it just kind of become like a total embellishment. Nobody knew what happened to Jason after a while. This is the one I had to wait the longest, man. I couldn't seem to get to view this one until like a year after it had been out at the theaters. It came out on home video. Because remember back in the day, home video, it isn't like Blu-ray now where it comes out like 4 to 6 weeks after it's been in the movie theater. You had to wait about a good year to a year and a half, maybe even 2 years, for it to come on HBO or on VHS at a rental store before you could actually view the movie again. So if you missed it, and you missed it for a while. So about a year and a half later, I finally got to see this one, and it didn't disappoint. I was really waiting for those effect scenes all these kids were talking about. Oh yeah, it was so bloody. Oh yeah, Jason gets his hand chopped in the middle. Yeah, that's the fond memory I have of Final Chapter whenever I'm talking about it to people. We're recollecting about these old good classics, these old slasher classics. Plus Jimbo's dance scene in the movie goes down in history. Crispin Glover, he always doesn't disappoint as far as turning in a very weird appearance about everything he's ever been in. The one that's near and dear to my heart. I saw this one in the movie theater. Friday 13th, Part 5, A New Beginning. Older cousins took me to see this one. And I gotta say, when I was a kid, this one was really fun because I couldn't believe the things that people were saying in this movie. Like the dialogue and Junior and Ethel. Ethel's cussing like a sailor and Junior's like running around like on his motorcycle acting all crazy. Of course, you had Reggie the Reckless, who was a kid actor because he was about my age at the time, so we're all rooting for Reggie. And then at the end, it's not really Jason, but it's not Tommy either. So you're just kind of one of those things where to a kid at that age, it's Jason. Nobody cared, you know. And I've always kind of held a special place in my heart for Part 5, mainly because it's so zany and so sleazy and so out there. It still fit what I consider to be the core group of Friday 13th. After Part 4, 5 is kind of like a little tack-on one to it. It's not really in that core group of the first 4, but they went back for the money and they got some. They didn't do as well as Part 4, I don't think, but it had not as great special effects, but it had that really sleazy Danny Steinman directed atmosphere, like Savage Streets, you know, and so forth. And it's got, this one's been signed by 3 folks. On the back, it's signed by the director Danny Steinman, the late great Danny Steinman. Met him at Fright Night Film Fest. Also, it's signed by the guy that plays Sheriff Tucker in the movie, Marco St. John, right there, and the lovely Debbie Sue Voorhees, Tina, the girl that had all the attitudes in the movie, if you take my meaning. That's right, guys. I hope to build on more autographs in this one in the future. I think Tom Morga is making his way around the convention circuit. He played the Roy Jason in the movie, so maybe I get him to sign this soon. Anyway, one of those little close to my heart. A fond memory about Part 5. Fond memory. My grandmother used to sit with me after school. I was one of those latchkey kids. You know, I had to come home on the bus. Mom was working second shift, so I needed somebody to be with me to a certain age, till I got to be a certain age. Hadn't yet got there, but this movie was on HBO. It was right after school. Why did they put these on after school? I'm glad for it, but it's one of those deals where, you know, if parents are really concerned, anyway. But it was on at about 4 o'clock. I was doing my spelling homework. I'm sitting Indian style in front of the little 25-inch floor model TV. You know, the old ones that used to look like furniture? Anyway, it was color, kids. It was a color TV. I'm watching this on HBO, and I knew what it was because I'd seen it in movie theaters. My grandmother's sitting in the corner behind me, and she starts doing like this at the TV, adjusting her glasses. And, you know, there's these kids getting naked in the movie and all this really crazy bad language in the film. And she's like, oh, Barry, I don't know if you could be watching this. Does your mama know you're watching this? I said, oh, Grandma, it's fine. Oh, yeah. Grandma was cool, though, because she sat back there and when Junior and Ethel shows up, and Ethel's cussing like a sailor, and Junior's running around his motorcycle acting all goofy, and, you know, it's the dinner table scene where she's telling him to eat your slop and all that stuff. My God rest her soul, my grandmother's back there about beet red, laughing her butt off. She is just like, you know, just laughing at those two, bickering at each other, and from that point on, my grandmother and I were on a different level together, guys. We had a love, that's right, for Friday 5. There's your memory of Friday 5, guys. Moving on, Friday 6, another one I saw on VHS. Did not see this one in the theaters. At that point, after you get post Part 5, Part 6 came out at the time when the video stores had hit their stride. It was cheap enough for average Joes and their families to get a hold of a player, get a rental. You had to get a membership back in the day, get a rental membership, and they had dollar night and all that stuff then. So Part 6, I rented this one, watched it by myself. I mean, my mom just let me rent it. I rented it, went into the living room was dark. She was in the bedroom talking on the telephone to people and let me watch this all by myself. I thought I was the big man on campus. The B.Mock, that's right. Watched Part 6, and that creepy opening where Jason gets resurrected and all that. That used to scare the crap out of me as a kid because I used to be really scared of zombie films and Frankenstein, the original Frankenstein, stuff like that. So that was aching to that type of atmosphere and the lightning and all that. But as the movie went on, I noticed it got a little bit more comical and stuff, so Friday 6 was one of those kind of, it's when everything changed. You changed into zombie Jason and all that kind of stuff. I guess my most fond memory with Friday 6 was I'm sitting there trying to explain to my mother or somebody that was watching it with me at a subsequent time that the guy that was playing Tommy in this was not the guy that played it in part 5, and it wasn't Corey Feldman in the Goonies. It was this guy from Return of the Living Dead. Have you seen that one? I was on this like horror roll at this young age, and everybody's sitting there like, no, I don't know this guy. It was Tom Matthews. I was trying to say, no, it's the same guy. It's the same guy. It was in Return of the Living Dead. And nobody would believe me. That's like my memory. I don't know. That's one that pops in my head all the time about part 6. It's not the kills and all that stuff that's in this movie. It's two things, really. It's Tom Matthews trying to explain that he's the same guy from Return of the Living Dead, and that the creepy opening scene where Jason's resurrected by the lightning. That used to scare me when his eye opens and the worms and all that. It used to scare me as a kid pretty good. The New Blood, Jason versus Carrie, or a Carrie-esque character. This one used to be up on my list a little bit, but I've watched it so much over time. It is, of course, the first appearance of Kane Hodder as Jason, and probably my most favorite appearance of Kane Hodder as Jason. The New Blood, John Carl Buechler, a special effects man, took over the direction. This is the one in the later 80s, probably about 88 when this one came out. This is when the MPAA had already started cracking down on horror films and cutting them back on the gore and stuff like that. If you didn't want to cut back on your release, you had to release it unrated, sort of like Romero had to do with Day of the Dead. You may have made the film that you wanted to make, but you didn't make nearly the amount of money that you would want to make at the theaters. So this is the one that has that nasty reputation of being raped as far as the MPAA is concerned, slashing all the good scenes out of it, that type of thing. It's your standard outing. It's just it has the added element of Carrie in it. My fond memory, though, of Part 7, I got to see this one in the theaters. I was really kind of a little bit older at this point, and I understood more that I was a Friday the 13th fan. I'd already went back on VHS abundantly and on a regular basis and watched these other films, because I basically was a Friday the 13th kid. Nightmare on Elm Streets were coming out at the same time. They were that close second. I was still just a Friday the 13th kid. I love my Jason Voorhees films. So, just one of those kind of deals that went down with Carrie and all that stuff in there. I liked the telekinesis thing as a kid, but as I got older, I'm just like, it's just ripping off Carrie. It didn't really do it for me anymore. But I still like to revisit it because Kane Hodder's appearance in this as Jason is pretty cool. I've always enjoyed that, how he did the... well, you know, everybody talks about how he breathes and how he moves and moves his head and all that stuff. He made it a character, more of a character than a stuntman. Because there's subtle differences between the other guys that played Jason and all the other sequels. You can tell different body structure and different build, that kind of stuff. Kane played him for the next 3 movies after this. I think he did 4 total. So it's one of those deals where the look of Jason in this film was really cool. I mean, as opposed to Part 6. Part 6 started the zombie Jason, yes, but they went and done something cool in this one. John Carl Buechler told the special effects team, I wanted to show all the damage from all the prior sequels. Go back and watch those movies and make it happen. And they did. Every bit of damage that was done to Jason and all the other films is in this presentation of Jason Voorhees. Saw this one in the movie theater. Like I said before, it was the first one. My little goofy memory of Part 7 is the first one I got to record on my own VHS tape and watch over and over again. You know, it was back in the day, things were more expensive. Blank VHS tapes were expensive, believe it or not. They were back in the day. A good TDK tape or something. Gosh, I can't believe I'm talking about this. But it was the first one I recorded off HBO, and I watched it abundantly. All my friends, we all watched it. It was kind of the one that, around that time when everybody was becoming a fan of it in my age group, it's the one that everybody kind of went for. There's your memory, guys. Part 8. That's right, guys. Part 8. Let me check something real quick. I don't think my Part 7's signed. Nope. Not yet, anyway. Part 8, Jason Takes Manhattan, or The Boat, as everybody likes to call it nowadays. For years, I dogged this film, and I hated it. Nowadays, as I've gotten older, I've learned to appreciate it more. I did a little Friday 13th from best to worst video a while back, about a year ago, and I put this one higher on my list. I even put it above Part 7, mainly because it's got more of a slasher, you know, basics than Part 7 had. Part 7 had the supernatural and all that stuff in it with telekinesis. I've grown to like this one because it's so bad, but it's bad in that good way to me nowadays. I don't get the flashbacks of the young Jason and how he's normal one second, then he looks like Jason the next with the mongoloid look, and I don't get all that really. I don't fully. I've always dubbed the Jason whenever he gets the toxic waste on him to be the Muppet Jason, because he looks like a Muppet. He looks like something Jim Henson put in this movie at the end, and the goofy sound that he makes at the end of the movie, it doesn't do it for me. But the boat sequences where he's doing the stalk and slash, all that kind of stuff, I don't know. It's kind of got a better place on my list nowadays. I can watch it just for the sheer bad in that good way factor. But Jason Takes Manhattan, didn't see it in the theaters. I remember it being the big disappointment film as a kid. That was my big memory for the longest time in my early age. I remember thinking, yeah, we'll get to see him in New York. Well, they show you a few flashes of what they call New York. Most of it's Canada. But no, nothing bad on my Canadian brothers out there. You may be listening, but it's just one of those deals where they used Canada to look like New York, and they only had like 2 or 3 shots in New York, really. That's explained on this commentary or on this deluxe edition somewhere. But I remember being a kid being so disappointed because it took so long on the boat to get to where they're going. But like I said, this is one that took time for me. It was like a fine wine, and it's not even really a good wine now. It's sort of still like a six bottle or $6 bottle of wine, but it's gotten a little bit better over time for the taste. If that makes any sense. All right, that was the Paramount 8, guys, the Holy Paramount 8. After that, things went really to crap. I mean, they sold the rights to New Line, or at least the character of Jason to New Line. New Line couldn't call it a Friday the 13th movie because for some odd reason Paramount retained the rights to the title, but they weren't going to do any more movies. So Bob Shaye's company, New Line Cinema, which back in the day was its own independent cinema, they started doing a line of movies. They did, I think, 3 total, and then did a joint effort with Warner Brothers to bring the remake out. The next one in the line was Jason Goes to Hell. This one I saw in the theaters. I was actually working in a movie theater at this time. I was working part-time after school and on the weekends at a local mom-and-pop movie theater. They got this one around 93, I think that's when this one came out. I remember being so hyped. I was like, dude, finally, Jason's big comeback. He's coming back, guys. He's coming back. Well, Jason did come back, and I remember seeing that one cheap poster art at the movie theater, salivating over it for like a month before it come out. That big chrome mask. We kept fantasizing, yeah, he's going to have a chrome mask, new look, yeah, it's going to be righteous, yeah. Well, we held, like we always did, a little private screen. When we first got the movie, our projectionist went upstairs and put it together. We had a little midnight show on Friday night, or Thursday night. Mom let me come home late that night and go to school the next day. I said, as long as I go to school in the morning, Mom, I want to see this. I want to see it before everybody else does. Mom was cool. She let me stay after work, and I watched it at midnight showing. Got home at 2 o'clock in the morning. Had to get up at 7 in the morning to get ready to go to school. I was so bummed, so pissed off that next day because it was like the first 15 minutes, it was like, well, I can deal with this look. Yeah, okay. Then there's SWAT guys jumping out shooting at him. I was even okay with that to some degree. They blew him apart. And then it became a movie that I'd seen already on VHS called The Hidden. Yes, that's right, a body jumping movie. And all of us Friday the 13th geeks at that time, we were all like just walking out like, man, that was dumb, that was stupid, I can't believe they did that. It was the big, that was my fond memory of watching it, or a memory I have of Jason Goes to Hell. Got to see it before the local community did, but at what a cost. Even at that young age of like 16 or 17, whenever I watched this, I was kind of like, dude, man, it could have been so much better. But I did get to see the private midnight screening of Jason Goes to Hell. Jason X, I didn't even bother with this one at the theaters, guys. I already knew this was going to be complete trash from the trailer. At that point in my life, this one came out much later, and we were all waiting for the Freddy vs. Jason movie forever, but we didn't get it. They went back to, not even really back to basics. They went back and just said, let's do something different, put Jason in space. What the heck, they had Leprechaun in space by this time, or something like that, I think. They hadn't even had Jason in space, but there's a few good moments in here. The cryogenics kill's pretty good, and Kane Hodder is back as Jason, but I don't really care for Uber Jason and all that crap and all the technology. Everybody was trying to be the Matrix at that point, and be high tech, and I didn't really care for the android chick and all that stuff, the end jokes. There was a few good moments, like I said, a couple good kills, but I waited till this came out on VHS, and I think DVD had started coming out strong by this, and I actually watched this on DVD at the house, so and rented it for the first time. But all I can say about this one is there's a few good kills. It was just kind of a retaining of the rights kind of film to me. They just made it so they can make some money to get on and hold the rights and get on to Freddy versus Jason. But you got to remember, Freddy Krueger, Nightmare on Elm Street, was owned by New Line, the same company at this time, and now was the time to strike. It eventually happened, and you got Freddy versus Jason. I gotta say, Freddy versus Jason. I didn't get to see this one in the theaters, but I did get to see it on DVD when it came out. I got this first run on DVD and took it home and watched it. I remember having fun with it, and I felt so bummed because I didn't get to see this one in the theaters. At that point in my life, I was kind of fizzling out with Friday the 13th, so I was like, man, I'm getting older now. I was dating then, and it was one of those deals where priorities were changing it for teenage years, and I was kind of like, I'll just catch it later. I'll watch it on HBO, whatever. Yeah, I got other things. Thinking about girls, thinking about, just being a teenager, But Freddy vs. Jason, it was disappointing that I didn't get to see it in the theaters, my memory that I have of it, because all my friends were going to see it, and I was like, no, I don't need to see it. But I should have. That is the one I regretted not seeing in the theater, because from what I heard from everybody is that it was stupid, it was goofy, it didn't make any sense, but you got to see Robert Englund as Freddy Krueger again, and it was like an event movie. It was like one you went to with all your friends, and sadly, I was a dummy. I didn't go with my friends and see it. But sadly, no Kane Hodder back as Jason in this one. That was where they messed up, in my opinion. Still, I think Kurt Herzinger, or whatever his name is, did the Jason in this one. He did an okay job. This is what I've always said about this one. It's always been, to me, it's been a Nightmare on Elm Street movie with Jason thrown into the storyline. It was nice to see Freddy Krueger back with Robert Englund in the role. He's the only Freddy Krueger, in my opinion. Mainly because, you got to remember, I think they killed Freddy off, or Freddy's New Nightmare had been out for a few years, and Freddy was gone for a while. For like 6 or 7 years or something like that, before they come back to make this one. So, it's nice to see Robert Englund back for one last go-around. He turned in a really good performance. They just got a really bad director and bad production team on this movie. Ronnie Yu, who did The Bride of Chucky or something like that. Why? Why get him? They could have got some Steve Miner. They could have got anybody at that time that needed a job to put in a decent directorial effort. So, anyway, Freddy vs. Jason, that's what I take away from it. I regretted seeing it in the theaters, but I did enjoy it when I got home because it's like an event movie. You can get your friends together and watch. You don't want to take this one seriously at all. But anyway, years go by, at least 6, 7 years, whatever. Then we get in, we're in the stride of all the remakes now. It was inevitable. They're going to do a remake. But the remake of Friday the 13th, I can actually watch it. And I put it high on my list nowadays. In subsequent viewings, it gets a little bit better because they did it right. You set them up, you let Jason knock them down. Just like dominoes. That's all you got to have for a Friday the 13th to work. And what I understand from all the stuff I read on this one, the Friday the 13th 2009, this one's signed by Derek Mears, who played Jason in the movie. Pretty cool. They incorporated into the storyline about tidbits from about the first 4 films. So you can see elements of those first 4 films in this one, but they made it like they should have. They made it like a regular slasher. Get those kids out in the woods, set them up, let Jason be out there lurking around and picking them off. That's all we really wanted to see. Why we had to go through Jason Goes to Hell, Jason X, Freddy vs. Jason. Freddy vs. Jason I don't really pick on that much, but those 2 other ones, man, they weren't needed. They just were not needed. Anyways, Friday the 13th, 2009, I've always kind of semi-championed this one. It didn't really bother me that much. I can watch it if I'm doing a marathon. It's not the first one I go for, but it is a decently made movie. Sadly, they didn't make it up New Jersey or somewhere like they made the other ones or some of the first ones. Made this somewhere around near Austin, Texas, and one of those deals where they kind of passed off a lake down in Texas for Crystal Lake, and I think they did pretty good. Derek Mears, great guy to meet in person. He did play a great Jason. I hope they get him back because he's got the height, the build for it. The guy is huge. He'd do a really good job. He really enjoys being in a horror movie. I met him in person a couple of times at horror conventions, and take time to meet him, ask him any questions. He's kind of like a fan like us he's just a stunt man that kind of got into doing this, and he got lucky and got the role. And he's just one of those guys that he's a little bit just about the same age, if not a little bit younger than me. So he's one of those guys where you really kind of get that he's on the level about these movies. He's not just there for a paycheck. So it's one of those deals. Well, I guess he is there for a paycheck, but he's there to do his role right. He's, you know, in it to win it. Anyway, I saw this one in the movie theaters. I bought the deluxe editions when they were coming out around the same time this was out. They had some movie cash with those, I think with the first 3 or something like that. And I took the movie cash ticket out of there and they accepted it at the local theater. So I got to see this for free at the theaters. I remember my best fond memory of this one when it came out is being so thankful that they had another Friday the 13th out, because years had went by. We're kind of in that slump now, guys, because this was put out in 2009. That was 4 years ago. There's talk now about doing another one. When will it come? We don't know. But I think there's a rights thing where Warner Brothers or whoever put this Paramount, somebody's to retain the rights. They're going to have to put another one out soon. So there's talk about it. Don't know how much or how less, but fond memory of this one is I was so thankful that there was one out there. I wasn't totally disappointed when I saw it in the movie theaters because I picked out all the little tidbits that they pulled from other movies, like the potato sack, and then he got his cocky mask, and so forth. There's a couple kills in there that kind of aching back to some of the other ones. I just hope they keep making movies, but what they do, I'm just glad to see this one. Is what I mean by that is because it keeps Jason and Friday the 13th alive. It got the title back out there again, Friday the 13th, for crying out loud. The way they should do Friday the 13th from now on, guys, just my humble opinion, they should retain the title Friday the 13th and just put Crystal Lake something, or just do a different underscore title. Jason's Revenge, or whatever you want to call it. I don't care. But do it in the right way. Set them up, knock them down. There was talk there for a while about doing a Friday the 13th at winter time, during the winter time around the lake. I think that would be pretty cool. See Jason in the snow. But don't take it away from the storyline too much. Keep it a slasher. At its core, that's what people want to see. The inventive kills, the kids promiscuous in the woods, making out, doing drugs, and choosing that route and paying for their actions. That has been your overview, guys, of my this is 37 minutes in, man. I hope you guys have strapped yourself in. You knew this was going to be a long video anyways. There's so many flicks. Going around the man cave, seated here, I'll show you some of my different Friday the 13th. Yeah, sorry guys, I don't know what happened there. Little technical difficulty. There's that clock that I got mounted on the wall. Sorry about the glare. It's my Friday the 13th job. They used all the, in numbered sequence, all the movies for the hours of the day. Well, that's pretty cool. Pretty cool, yeah. Rocking it. I got a couple of autographs up there I've shown in other videos. There's no close-ups today because I'm lazy. I'm sitting on my butt. 8x10 signed by Sean Cunningham, director of the first. And 8x10 by Kane Hodder himself as Jason in part 7. Look at my older videos. You'll get some more intel on those. Over here, I've got, of course, my Jason standy-up doll over there, or action figure. He moves and plays and everything. Got an 8x10 there of Betsy Palmer, signed by, or it's 8.5x10 size I sent out to her. 8.5x10 signed by Betsy Palmer, old Mrs. Voorhees from the original. Friday 5 print signed by Shavar Ross, old Reggie, the Reckless from part 5. I hope to get more on that one day. Come here, Freddy. You got to get out of the way. We're talking about Friday the 13th today. Friday part 6 print signed by the director Tom McLaughlin, all his bloody best. Part 7 print signed by Lar Park Lincoln. Hope to get that signed by Kane Hodder one day. He's always at conventions though. Maybe I can get that signed soon. That's it for the 8x10s I got on the wall. I don't really have anything else as far as one sheets available right now. As I said before, I'm not going to get those out. Oh yeah, man, how can I forget? Got my hockey masks up there. Got part 3 mask, part 5 Roy mask. These were both made by a Creepy Kentuckian over at deadpit.com. Creepy Hawks, as he calls them. Pretty cool, pretty cool. I believe that's it. And I've got my Crystal Lake, Camp Crystal Lake that way sign up there above my closet. Bought that at a convention up in Kentucky last year. Rockin', yeah. That's pretty much just a quick overview of some of my collectibles around the man cave. And the lengthy overview memories video of all my first impressions and or memories of the Friday the 13th goodness series. May they always make more. And watch out for Jason, guys. He's always lurking in the shadows. Bye.